The Golden Stallion, the Man of Tomorrow, Sabzu, the Rated R Radio Star, here for your Patreon-only Wednesday Q&A. And boy, did the questions start coming in this week. And please keep them coming. I really, again, the trough is low on questions. So ask whatever you want. We got some great tech questions to get into. And then maybe a fun question towards the end. And of course, we got your album of the week this week. As you can tell, I am on location using my trusty H6, Zoom H6. To do the recording here. So if the audio is a little different than you're used to, or a lot different than you're used to, I am not in the BDSM studios, but of course that's why I keep mobile equipment with me. And boy, this is all just working out so wonderfully. And I'll tell you, when you're on location, the importance of having great battery life on whatever the fuck you're using, be it your laptop, your mobile recording setup, your phone, man, it makes a difference when you have great battery life. I'll just say that much. So anyway, a lot to get into here. I do want to say, so I actually ran into, here's kind of a funny thing. I ran into, let's say, a little bit of a technical issue with MailChimp, which I use to send out the Sovereign Tech newsletter. So the Sovereign Tech newsletter did not go out on time, and it'll go out as soon as it can, but it is all done, all set, and beautiful. I really think it's a great issue, so I can't wait to get it out to you. But because of that, I actually released this week, ahead of time, I released the short fiction that normally appears in the newsletter. Now, something else I think I might do, I might actually start in Patreon, just for the patrons. It won't be a public post. I'm going to make it just for the patrons. I am going to maybe, just release the entire newsletter as a Patreon post for you to be able to access. Of course, it won't have the same kind of shine and sheen, as it were, of the full-on email, but that way you have it and you know you get it and you know when it's out there, because I know we're still having issues where it's ending up in people's spam folders, which I still have to figure out why the hell it's doing that. But I will figure out why that's happening. So anyway, you got the conclusion to the Star Trek Forbidden Frontier story, Another Side of Paradise. You got part 6, which is the end of that, and now we will move on to other stories. A little inside track. Part 6 of Another Side of Paradise was actually so long. Don't worry, we're going to get to the tech questions. It was actually so long. I mean, it was a novelette in itself. It was just huge. So I did trim it down quite a bit. Feel free to send me your feedback on the story and let me know what you thought about it overall within that. And, of course, we got lots of great stuff coming up for Star Trek Forbidden Frontiers in the very near future. But let's get into some Sovereign Tech. Let's get into some questions here. And, again, I really do appreciate all the ones that got sent in the past week. So this one, we'll start off with this one. And this is kind of a quick question, but could have a very long conversation around it. The question is, and this is asked on Patreon, do you agree with Steve Gibson's assertion that Faxploit is much worse than Meltdown and the Spectre attacks? Okay, so what is Faxploit? Faxploit was something announced at DEF CON this year in 2018, and it is effectively that you could, through a fax machine, and I know a bunch of you are laughing, saying, who uses fax machines? All right, let's stop the horse right there, because there are literally, globally, over 45 million fax machines still in use in the world today. And how many faxes get sent to you? You can say, all right, yeah, well, so all these businesses, there's 45 million fax machines out there. All these businesses have them, but who's really using them? Well, there's the rub. 17 billion, okay, get your Dr. Evil little laugh out, $1 billion, right? 17 billion faxes sent every year. To this day, 17 billion. Now, when you consider exactly what it takes, or this exploit, which they are nicknaming Faxploit, okay, when you consider that, in 17 billion faxes, that is 17 billion opportunities, all right, for malware to get spread to a network, because this is what it does, and let's talk about it on DEF CON. So, look, those numbers alone, I mean, let's just talk about this, that potentially 45 million devices that are actively used. Using something 17 billion times, if that's not actively used, I don't know what the fuck is. The 45 million fax machines, okay, 45 million devices in the world are susceptible, just open, ready for ready for this exploit to take advantage of them. Is that a serious problem? Anything that's 45 million devices, you bet your fucking ass that it's pretty serious. Okay, and that it's a very real problem. But let's talk a little bit about it. So what can effectively happen is that if an attacker has the fax number for the target that he's going after, okay, she can send an image file, okay, that would effectively upload malware to the fax machine. Now, well, okay, so it hurts the fax machine. What's the big deal there? Well, that malware could do all kinds of things with the fax machine. But to say nothing of the fact that malware could cause, potential problems for the entire network that this fax machine is attached to. And most fax machines aren't like on a, its own secured little, VPN separated network or something. It's attached to the broader network of oftentimes entire businesses. Okay, I can think of businesses just recently that I had worked at where absolutely the fax machine was connected to, just the entire company's network and nobody thought anything of it. So this is and also to understand, like, there really are countries, and I don't mean backwater countries of any kind. I don't mean any kind of developing markets or something. Like Japan heavily uses fax machines to this day. Heavily. In fact, I guarantee you, at least a quarter of the numbers that I just spoke off to you are probably just in Japan alone. Okay. So, with Faxploit, just effectively sending a picture. Okay. You're sending a picture to a fax, which, appears as an image or, gets sent to it as an image file. And then that spreads the malware. And then, you can cause all kind of ruckus on a network, potentially. So, this is a very real problem. This is very, very serious. This is very scary because effectively, let's 40-foot view it. We're not just talking about 45 million devices. We're talking about potentially 45 million networks, and then it just builds on from there, of what could possibly be done. Yeah, that's absolutely terrifying. Now, to say that, is this worse than Meltdown Inspector? I'll tell you why I think, and I think Steve Gibson said the same thing. By the way, Steve Gibson, if you don't know, if you're a new listener or a new patron, Steve Gibson runs the Security Now podcast. He is a personal hero of mine. This is the guy that coined the terms spyware, and so on. He is a genuinely brilliant coder. He wears a lot of hats. This guy is respected across the board in security research. And I totally recommend listening to Security. I listen to Security Now as soon as the episode comes out. Generally, I am right on top of that. I am such a fan, and I think he's doing such tremendous work with that show, which actually saves me a lot of work on Sovereign Tech from either not having to talk about what he already covers so well, or that like I can get his hot take, shall we say, and his takes are absolutely the hottest in the security field, in my opinion. On what's going on, and then I can, share that with you. And I generally give him credit for, when it's his idea. So I think he just about said the same thing on this. The reason why this is scarier than Meltdown Inspector is that Meltdown Inspector, most of those exploits, most of those attacks are, well, first, they're hardware based, and of course the fax machine is also hardware, but you have to be at the hardware, right, to take advantage of it. Most of Meltdown Inspector attacks aren't really something that can get so much exploited over a network. Okay, and we're still figuring some out, and I'm not saying all. I'm just saying in general that's the case. As to where the fax machine, what makes it really scary, or with Faxploit, what's really scary about that is that there's no security built into fax machines generally. Okay, they're designed to accept every single fucking phone call that comes into the fax machine. So it's kind of like baseband networks, okay, on mobile phones, on smartphones. And this is why, like with dark Android devices, this is why for years I've recommended going with a tablet. Because if you go with a tablet, the tablet doesn't have all of that baseband firmware that's always on and ready to just accept any signal that comes its way. Because you always have your LTE on and everything else. Okay. I mean, I know there's still baseband. I mean, it's still ARM based and there's still stuff there, but it's somewhat mitigated. So anyway, with this, I mean, they're just accepted to take any phone call that comes its way and to take anything that gets sent its way. There's no security that says, "Are you sure you want to accept this?" Or, "Oh, this is sending an image file. Are you sure you want to accept this fax?" No, it just accepts the fax. And that's the problem. That's why this is so terrifying, because it's just wide open. It's by design to not really have security. Now, HP, the model that they used it on specifically was an HP model, and it's one of these like multi-function devices, right? Kind of like Epson's Workforce. I'm a big fan of those. But they put out a firmware patch, okay, to where you can update the printer. To put in a security patch that will mitigate what Faxploit can do. But here's the thing. When's the last time you heard somebody at the office saying, "Oh yeah, let's update the firmware on our multifunction printer / fax machine"? It didn't happen. It almost never happens. I know some HPs, I've seen some HP models specifically, actually, where they have an auto updater built into the software that's built into the, whatever they call it, the multi-jet or, whatever, the thing that, it has a scanner, it has the fax machine, it has the printer and all that, these multifunctional printers. So, that might be advantageous, but then I know also for a fact that you still have to kind of go through a process and accept it and everything. And generally that's the right thing to do. There's concerns around getting automatic updates, right? And I understand that. Like in a perfect world, we don't want updates to be automatic. Okay, we want it to be a thing that you are saying yes to and that you're choosing, etc., for privacy concerns, security concerns, otherwise. All right, but we don't live in a perfect world, and in a not perfect world, automatic updates are probably safer than non-automatic updates. Okay. So the problem is that most people probably are not going to update this, and try and fix it. And again, that's the other part of why this is so scary, because it is a backdoor to who knows what. Okay, potentially all kinds of problems. So yes, I think Faxploit is potentially, and I think Steve Gibson said the same, because it was a couple weeks back, 2-3 weeks back, I think, when he finally talked about it. But I think Faxploit is potentially, next to, say, some kind of IoT attack, like the worst exploit that's ever been discovered. I mean, it's just terrifying. And, they talked to HP before they put it out there. Now, let's be clear about this. Okay, this is kind of an expensive attack to do for a few reasons. Like, you really have to know the fax number of who you want to attack. To get the target down, this is not something that your everyday, quote-unquote, cyber criminal, okay? I hate to even use that term. But this is not something that your everyday cyber criminal. I like using that term instead of hacker, because I think hackers are heroes. But that your everyday cyber criminal, they're not going to do this. Like, they really have to get all this information. They'd really have to know who they're going after and why and what they want to do, because you'd have to put a pretty specific payload, I would imagine, to actually do something useful with this. But if you were targeted, if someone knew what they wanted to do, it's too easy. Like, it's really, really easy to do. And that's why it's so scary. But it's probably, as far as we know, it hasn't happened in the wild. It probably, it'll probably be rare, if ever, that it's used in the wild. If it is used in the wild, it would be probably by, I would venture by the NSA or something like that. But yeah, this is a very, very, very scary situation. So if you have one of these multifunction, because we don't know that it's just limited to HP. It's probably limited, or it's probably affects a bunch of different, multifunction printers, okay, that have fax machines on them and everything. So just check and see if you can get the latest firmware and update that, whatever device you have. If you have an Epson, a Lexmark, whatever you got, just make sure it's updated. And again, this is specifically for fax machines. If you just have a printer or you just have a scanner, that's a totally different situation. So anyway, yeah, very, very, very terrifying. Again, it's probably not going to get used much. It's an expensive affair to engage in, but it is very real, and it is potentially very widespread. Next to like the Mirai botnet, I really can't think of much worse. in my opinion. And yes, to answer the question specifically, I do think it's worse than Meltdown and Spectre, because, again, with those, generally, you've got to be right at the device. You got to be doing some, you got to be physically there to really do that, as to where this is totally remote and way too easy to do from a remote location. So there's that. Okay, well, let's move on to another question, and this is kind of a tech question, but it's going to get a bit into the philosophical here, and it has to do with Facebook, which one of our favorite subjects on Sovereign Tech, of course. So. All right, it's one sentence. This was also asked on Patreon, which is a great way to ask questions because I'm guaranteed to see it. I don't always see things on Twitter, but on Patreon, I literally see every single thing. And I try to respond, in some way, to everything on Patreon, whether it's through a podcast or it's actually on Patreon's platform itself. I try to do that. So, okay, here it is. Are you afraid to permanently, and they put that in caps, are you afraid to permanently delete Facebook? Okay, let's talk about this. I have not used Facebook in a long, long, long time. In a long time. Okay, and most people, and actually we talked about this, I think it was during the PorkFest episode, when Athena was on and Stephanie and Ellen were on, where we talked about how, or in fact, I think it's what actually got Athena onto the episode. But we were talking about how, I said that look, most people don't use Facebook for Facebook anymore anyway. Okay, they generally use it for groups, private groups that are like interest-based or something like that. They use it for groups. Or maybe they use it for Messenger because they feel like it's the phone book of the internet or something. And I get it, okay? I understand your point on that. Some people have their Facebook accounts attached to their Instagram accounts. And I'm not even sure if you can delete your Facebook account and yet keep your Instagram account at the same time if you go through that whole process. Some people log into, and some apps force you to log into it with your Facebook account. Some services require you to log into things with a Facebook account. All right. Also, schools. Like this is becoming a thing where I think schools and, well, not so much schools, but workplaces, and those could end up being schools is more like with Microsoft or Google accounts. But workplaces are requiring you to have a Facebook account to log into work. You also have the problem. I mean, look, the point I'm making in describing all of this is that every service that Facebook propagates, that Facebook puts out there, groups, Messenger, go down the list, is a problem because you're giving all of that data to Facebook, and Facebook has absolutely, unquestionably been proven to be a shit steward for your data. We can argue back and forth about, well, it's okay if I hand over my privacy, it's okay if I give them this data if I choose to and it's consensual, blah blah blah. It's okay. Yeah, but they're doing a million not consensual things and things that I'm sure you would not agree to. At least I hope you would not agree to if you're still a fucking human being, okay, with your data. They are doing that, and again, they are not a good steward of your data at all. They are horrendous with it. And they don't even tell you what they're using it for, right? Which makes it doubly worse. Even more so. There aren't strong enough words, all right, for how bad it is what Facebook does, with your life, your digital life, which is your life as well today. There's no separation, okay? So, with that in mind, because of the pervasiveness of all of these other Facebook services, it's not just about the news feed anymore. It's not just about sharing pictures in your newsfeed or on your timeline or whatever and tagging people in it, which, you really shouldn't do that without permission. But, I mean, does it really matter because Facebook's going to know who it is, right? That's why they're building half the algorithms and doing all the machine learning that they do in the first place. Okay? It's not just about that anymore. When that's bad enough, but it's not just about that anymore. And so, am I afraid to answer the question quickly, and I want to say a lot more about this, but to answer the question quickly, am I afraid to permanently delete my Facebook account? It is almost to the point that I can't. And this has nothing to do with the fact that I have an Instagram account. Like, I would deal with it. I would figure it out. Okay? How to still have, like, my Instagram account and ditch my Facebook account. I would do that. I'm not afraid to delete my Facebook account. I would do it in a second. All right? The problem here is that for a lot of people that either I need to converse with or do this with, etc., whatever, acquaintances and other things, like Messenger is really the cincher. Like, because so many people want to be able to contact you on Messenger, and these same people, for whatever reasons, don't have Twitter accounts, so they can't DM me. And I have no problem. I'll hand over my phone number, at the drop of the hat. I don't give a shit. People, I've got that stuff so locked down. You can have my phone number all you want. Okay, I'd love it if these people use Signal, but then, admittedly, there is one little flaw with using Signal. Okay, or maybe I could get people onto Telegram, but I haven't had a whole ton of luck with that, and of course, for years, Telegram comes with its own problems, and I've said this for a long time, that if you want to use Telegram, don't think of it as an encrypted messenger. Just think of it as a Facebook alternative. Okay, that's the way, when you think of Telegram that way, Telegram's fine. Okay, I would, happy to talk to people on Telegram. All right, like I could do that too, but people just like for the same reasons they won't go on Twitter, whatever reasons they don't go onto Telegram. Okay, but one of the problems with Signal, I think, for some people, is that if you share a lot of pictures, your Signal folder, if you don't want to delete your previous messages and everything, your Signal folder, and especially if you create a backup, right, on Android or whatever, your Signal, files, or like your Signal installation, that's the word I want to use. Your installation of Signal could get into the multitude of gigs. And if some people in parts of the world, only have like an 8 gig or 16 gig phone or something like that, Signal alone could be the only app they could have installed, more or less, and it could fill up the entire phone storage in short enough time. Especially if there's a lot of media getting sent to, GIFs, pictures, whatever else, because nothing's getting stored on, and this is a good thing, this is by design, nothing's getting stored on, OpenWhisper Systems servers that operate Signal. Okay, everything is being done right on your device. That's the fucking point. But that file could get huge, over years and down the line. And that could be, for some people, that could be a very real problem. So a lot of people don't realize that that's a thing, or even if they did realize that's a thing, I mean, like they would probably, what'll happen is the Google Play Store will say, hey, wow, your phone is full of shit. Do you want to clear up some space? And so, in the Play Store, they'll click on free up some space. And then the first thing that's going to come up for them is like that Signal is taking up however many gigs or something. And they're going to say, well, fuck, I'll delete that. I don't need to talk to Brian Sovereign that bad. And then they delete it and they never use Signal again. And they're back on Facebook Messenger or whatever. So, me personally, no, I'm not really afraid of deleting my Facebook entirely. But there are reasons, certain people, that I keep a Facebook account open for. But I so limit its use. Now, there's another argument for having for keeping a Facebook account that I want to be conscious of and make you aware of. And that is, and I've talked about this before on Sovereign Tech Prime episodes, you may want to keep a Facebook account just because if you don't have a Facebook account, someone might make one in your name. Now, this is a little more challenging than it used to be, okay? Because Facebook now requires you, even if you think you don't need it in the beginning, give it a few minutes and Facebook is going to say, hey, to secure your account, you're going to need a phone number. You have to have a phone number, and you have to keep that phone number because they'll keep checking in on you, okay? You have to have a phone number to have a Facebook account today. So now, does that, of course, why did Facebook do that? Well, part of it, is a very real concern that they don't want people making a bunch of bullshit accounts, okay? And having a phone number, regardless if you're using Hushed or, some other service that generates phone numbers for you, can be an expensive proposition on a big enough scale. So I get it. Like, I really understand, why Facebook is doing that. But let's be clear that that's a thing. So, creating a second Facebook account and doing these other things isn't exactly the easiest thing in the world to do anymore. But bottom line being is that I'm very aware that there's the argument that, someone could impersonate you online and it could end up being a very real problem. for you because they impersonated you and they used your name and credentials and pictures and everything online. So if you keep your original Facebook account, you can very quickly say, hey, motherfucker, that wasn't me. All right, so I understand that. And it's not an unfair argument. Okay, I mean, it really isn't. Okay, so, but here's the thing, is that I would love if everybody deleted their Facebook account. I would love it if people went to alternatives. Hell, if they went to Telegram. Okay, they wanted their groups, because that's the other thing. I know, again, like I said, I know so many people, the only reason they use Facebook still is for groups and Messenger. They don't post on Facebook publicly anymore. They just don't. Okay, and I get it, because there's groups for your business, for your startup, or this lifestyle business that you're doing. There's groups for voice artists and all this other stuff that are really helpful, and can really give you an edge in your business. And I understand that. And is it okay for you to have a Facebook account so you can access those groups and have that edge in your business and maybe get to the point in life where you become truly successful, which I define truly successful as being able to be permanently AFK, permanently away from keyboard if you choose to? Sure, of course, go for it. The goal in life is to be happy, and, there are no rules necessarily outside of that. So, all of this said, I wish people would delete everything and go there. You can have a Facebook account, but as long as you don't really use it, it appears, based upon the way Facebook has reacted to what they call content collapse, where people weren't posting as much and all this other stuff, it would appear that hurts them significantly if you have it and don't use it. So you can have it for the security reasons that I described, or because there's those one or two people that you have to, that's how they communicate on the internet, is through Facebook Messenger or something. Okay, but as long as you generally don't use it, and if you can eventually get people to say, hey, please, could you stop messaging me on Messenger? Okay, could you try using this? As long as we start having those kind of conversations, we can still work on bringing down Facebook. Okay, but if we mentioned Steve Gibson earlier, he doesn't have a Facebook account. He can get away with that, though, right? He can really get away with that. And how does he communicate with, first off, he's older, so he probably doesn't have older family than him, because he's in his 60s. Okay, he doesn't have older family. He probably doesn't have a whole lot of older family than him. And if he does, they're probably not even using a smartphone. That, they can communicate in other ways. All right, as to where if you're like me, where you're in your 30s, you have older family that's just on the cusp of using, say, smartphones and things like this, and Messenger is just one of the first things that they jumped on, we can teach older people to jump on that. I'll say it, Stephanie's mom uses, we've taught her to use Signal, and that's how she communicates with us. So, it can happen. It can work, but, granted, she's a brilliant woman. So, you got to give her credit where credit's due. So, but regardless, I'm not afraid to delete it, but if I did, it would be a major inconvenience for some people that I care about, and it would be a major inconvenience for certain things that I have to do. But it was funny, actually, now I have a rule, okay, that I think it's rude to look at somebody else's screen, be it their computer screen, their tablet screen, their e-reader screen, their smartphone screen, whatever. I think it's rude to just look at it without asking. Okay. Or if you do happen to see it, say, hey, I gotta apologize. Sorry. I wasn't meaning to look at your screen. And I do that all the time with people because, this is these devices have become very private because some of our most private aspects of ourselves are contained therein. All right. So I think that's good etiquette in our modern world. So, but that said, I happen to get a glimpse, and I apologize. Not that Stephanie minds if I see what's on her screen. I don't mind if she sees what's on mine. Again, I'm just being courteous. Okay. But I noticed on her screen, I was like, I saw the Facebook app open and I looked at it. I was like, and I said, it's like, look, I'm sorry. I just caught this out of the corner of my eye. I didn't see anything important on the screen. I just saw the UI of Facebook, and I was struck at how different it is now. And I had to say to her, I was like, I can't believe, could I look at that? I can't believe how, and there's nothing important on the screen at all whatsoever, but I was like, can I just look at that? I haven't seen Facebook on mobile in months. Like, I mean, just an absolute, it's been so long since I saw what that even looked like. I was just like shocked, and because it looked almost alien. The website still looks the same, but the actual mobile app is night and day now from where it was just at the beginning of the year. So anyway, and I have to ask myself as a tech journalist, should I keep abreast? Should I keep an eye on just, on the changes that, so I can comment about the Facebook app and everything? And I don't really think I need to do that as a tech journalist. My job as a tech journalist is to get people away from Facebook. But no, I'm not afraid of permanently deleting my account. But I think there's good arguments of where you can keep one and that you can still hurt Facebook while having a Facebook account. You really can. So that's all of that. Nothing more to say as far as that goes. So, all right. Let's go on to our next question. And I mean, if you have thoughts, if anyone has thoughts that's contrary, like, how Facebook has saved your life and done this other shit, go ahead and tell me. I want to talk about it. Like, it's helpful for me to know, what it's done for you on a personal level. Okay. Because then I can communicate to the broader world, because I mean, TechCrunch might not talk about it. Who knows who might talk about it. So if you actually have like great stories about how Facebook changed your fucking life, tell me. And I'm willing to at least get it out there, or if anything, you might be able to change my mind. I have an open mind. But again, at the end of the day, Facebook this is the most important fact to take away from all this. Facebook is the worst possible steward of your data. Just bar none. Doesn't matter what you're using Facebook for. It's the worst. I mean, because we didn't even get into, Facebook is still tracking you where you go. They're still using, if you have Messenger installed. There's all kinds of, app permissions that are problems. I mean, there's so many fucking problems that still exist, even if you don't really use the account. Okay, and to be aware of. But anyway, bottom line being, just remember that. Facebook is the worst steward for your data of any company. And we know it. It's provable. That's not theory. It's not conspiracy. It's just a fucking fact that they have proven to be the absolute worst steward. And they've proven that they engage in behavioral experiments on people unknowingly. Okay. So anyway, all right, let's get on to another question here. This one is kind of about me. So, but I'll answer it. Here we go. This is from Patreon as well, from the community tab. I know you're a teetotaler, but have you ever been interested in consuming alcoholic beverages not for effects, but for flavor? I think that if I ever came to a point where I was done with any kind of intoxicants, I would still consume alcohol, just not get a buzz or drunk. Craft beer, good wine, scotch, and absinthe are so delicious, and most of the time I drink them, I don't do it for the effect. I'm sure you don't know what most of them taste like, but if you were to take one up, which one would you do on just the aesthetics alone? Or which one do you think would taste the best? So, ironically, absinthe, okay, I've actually tried pretty much everything you talked about there, except for maybe the craft beers, because when I did bother to drink, all right, there was a time in my life where I drank. It was a very short period of time, but it was while I was in the military. Okay, and outside of that, I would still have a couple things, even when I got out of the military, there were a couple times where I would have something. But other than that very short period of time in my life, I have, by choice, I'm a teetotaler. Don't drink, don't do. I do caffeine. If you want to be that kind of person that says, oh, well, you don't do drugs, but you do caffeine. You take aspirin. It's like, all right, what we mean. All right, right, when we're talking about drugs. I don't do any. I don't do anything. I don't know what term to use if I, I never do anything that isn't on the counter, I guess. Well, CBD is available now. You can take CBD, so, that's okay. Now go for it, Brian, if you're willing to do things that are on the counter. Stop. I don't even like to take Tylenol. And I can't remember the last time I ever took Tylenol. It's been years. Okay? I really, really try not to do that. All right? Now, I have zero problem with other people doing it. You have a great time. I've recently hung out with people while they were doing it, and I don't care. And I am right at you with your party, having a great time. And I've done that, okay? And not long ago at all. You can count it on your hand. So don't mistake me, okay? And I knew what I was getting into. I don't have a problem with people doing this. I want to disclaim that. I don't have a problem with people drinking, especially women, because I know how hard society is on you, and that it is tough for you to, really let loose, shall we say, at the end of the day, or, at the beginning of the day, or whatever. I get it. All right? I'm not judging anyone for drinking or anything. I'm really, really not, or for doing any of these other things. I just want to make that abundantly clear. Every time I talk about this, I want to make sure that is known. Okay, I am not some Mormon or Adventist on a high horse telling you shouldn't be doing that. I'm not doing. I mean, I could talk about why I don't, and there are genuine health and medical concerns that I have. Okay, but that's my own threshold and opinion. All right. So it's up to you. You have your own thresholds. Just like maybe I shouldn't drink as much coffee as I do. And that's something that I have to, address. Okay? And I think my threshold's high, and then I find out, well, shit, maybe it's not so high. This is just the information that we deal with. So anyway, to get to the question, which is a very nice and fun question. But my point being is that, yeah, I've had great wines. I've drank scotch. And absinthe, actually, I think absinthe is the last thing I ever drank years ago, like over a decade ago. I think it was the last thing I ever drank. I actually had I was friends with the guy who was very much associated with, let's just say, groups in Ireland. And they got some smuggled in. We'll put it that way. Okay. And I tried it. And yes, it is as far as taste, it is a delicious drink. Of course, absinthe is more than just a drink, right? I mean, that has certain effects, shall we say, all of which are very interesting, which, that's another story for another time. So when I did drink, I think I might have talked about this at certain points. Are there any drinks that are really good for flavor? I mean, I've tried a lot of different things, and I've tried some really, gross shit and shit that's, you're not supposed to drink because it, could literally kill you, like the stuff that they make the little burner candles out of at a buffet. I've tried all that. So when I was drinking, I really wanted to play the field, as it were, test out a bunch of different stuff. So beer wise, okay, let's start off with beer. Beer wise, the two that I thought, and it's only in relation to beer, in my opinion, that they tasted good. I had Amberbach at Busch Gardens, and Amberbach it's a very dark beer. That tasted good as far as beer goes. I don't think there's any beer that tastes good. But as far as okay, what's a beer that I can drink and doesn't make me want to throw up? Like some Old Mill or something. Amberbach's one of those. And the other one of all ironies is, and they'd constantly be jocular towards me about this because it was it Michelob Ultra, which is the low carb beer, which is kind of what got me started on drinking at all, actually, in the military. And I tasted it, I was like, well, that isn't half bad. Because at the time I was very much on a low carb diet, in a very, very fit point in my life. Similar to where I am now, though now my measurements are actually, I think, larger than when I was in the military and working out pretty heavily. So, but Michelob Ultra, yeah, I mean, and they keep joking with me saying, oh, that's a woman's beer. I'm like, well, it tastes good, so I don't fucking care. Women obviously have better taste than men. So, if that's the case. But yeah, so Michelob Ultra and Amberbach, those are the only two beers I ever tasted that tasted remotely good. But the craft beer and the microbreweries, that wasn't exactly a thing yet. I'm sure it was out there, but it wasn't as prevalent as it is today. So now, as far as wine, I get it. My favorite that I would order would be a really dry Andre of some kind, and I'd never got really snobbish about it where this brand or something like that. I never got that way. But yeah, that's usually what I would go with that I found that I really liked. First time I ever actually got drunk as a teenager, which is actually one of the things that made me decide to not drink until I got in the military, was actually some sangria, the really cheap shit. I forget what they call it. It's that stuff that comes in the huge jug that you can get in just about any supermarket. And that wasn't very good. So anyway, but yeah, like a nice Andre, that was always kind of my favorite flavor to get as far as that goes. Scotch, and some of the harder stuff. As far as the harder stuff, I really did like drinking Goldschlager, and that was totally aesthetic. Not so much the flavor, but the fact that you're drinking little flakes of gold and all that. I just always thought that was, I don't think for me personally, like, I get the aspects where people think drinking is cool. I don't think drinking is, like, cool, but there's something to that, right? Like, you're drinking gold, you know. I mean, that is. I always felt that that's kind of badass, and a part of me still thinks that it is. I've had some of the higher end Johnny Walkers, which certainly taste better than, you know, your average Johnny Walker Blacks or Blues. You know, I've had some of the higher end ones, and those, you know, those, I get it. There's some flavor to it, but overall, I really don't like the taste of alcohol. I mean, I really don't. Like, you kind of, like, the whole time, any time that I was actually drinking, it was always just like, okay, well, this is acceptable as compared to alcohol. But, like, it never tasted as good as milk. It never tasted as good as, like, honestly, a diet, you know, like a Diet Pepsi or a Diet Coke or something. It never tasted as good as, like, all these different things, you know, that are out there. So I'm always, like, looking at, okay, this tastes good in comparison, you know, to whatever. So I've never really found an alcohol that I actually like the taste of, in that way where I would be, okay, I would drink this even though it's not to get drunk. Now, understand, like, getting drunk, this whole concept of getting drunk. Now, this happens around the world, but it is way more a thing in American culture than it is when you start traveling the world. You find out, yeah, there's a lot of people who will go out on a Sunday and have, like, one beer. But that's all they'll fucking have is one beer. They don't get drunk and they move on. And pay attention to when you go around the world. I challenge anybody to do this for a multitude of reasons. It's a whole other conversation in itself. But you'll be amazed at how quiet, even if they're just as modern and people are driving around Teslas, you'd be amazed at just how quiet these cities are compared to American cities. And they could have shy of 1 million people and whatever else, you know, they could be as big as any American city. And you'll be in awe at how quiet these things are. Now, I'm not saying causation is correlation or anything like that, or correlation is causation. I'm not saying that because people don't drink as much in these other areas, or because they know how to hold their liquor, say in Barcelona or something like that. I am not saying that somehow they're better. I am not saying that that necessarily drinking is what makes a city loud or anything like that. I'm not saying that. All right, I'm just saying pay attention to these things. Look at that when you go around, and you'll see just how unique a lot of what you think is perfectly normal and part of the human condition and part of having a good time is actually only an American thing. And just because something's American doesn't inherently mean it's good. I hope that lesson has been brought across the board many times on Sovereign Tech. So, or, you know, makes it natural or right or something like that, you know. But again, I'm not knocking anybody for drinking. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. And I get where people, like, I totally understand where there are people who think, oh no, this drink actually just tastes good. Like, you know, how many people like their margaritas and, you know, Bloody Marys and whatever else, I don't know, that where it just genuinely tastes good to them. I completely understand, you know, and no judgment. No judgment from me whatsoever on any of that. But alcohol, just, you know, when alcohol's there. Hell, when what's the stuff? Not kimchi. This is terrible. Stephanie's not here right this second. So kombucha. That's it. Kombucha. You know, you can when kombucha becomes alcoholic, and it does, you can taste it. Like, you instantly know, oh, that's gone to alcohol content. And I just don't like that flavor. It's just not my thing. So, yeah, there's really nothing on that board that, you know, that where I would say to myself, oh yeah, that just tasted so good. I got to have it. Oh, you know what I did like? Okay, all right. Let's take a little bit of that back. There is one drink that I actually thought tasted pretty good to where, okay, you know, I would have that once. But again, I think most people consider it a quote unquote woman's drink, whatever the fuck that means. Smirnoff Triple Black. And in fact, that's part of where I got the name, or where I came up with the term Triple Black, was from Smirnoff, which I used to drink. I used to drink Smirnoff Triple Black a lot. Not to the point of getting drunk necessarily, but I would drink that quite a bit. But that's more of a, what do you call that, a cooler or something? I don't know. But Smirnoff Triple Black, that actually tastes pretty good. And it's not just because of Triple Black, because at the time, I wasn't even necessarily triple black as far as, you know, clothing, because I had just gotten out of the military at that point. So, yeah, you know, I'll give you a 1. How about that? Where I think that, like, that's something where, okay, no, that tastes pretty good. All right, so let's wrap this baby up. Let's go into our album of the week, and we got a pretty good one here. I mean, it's not as good as what I was hoping, but it's pretty good. And this one is from a band that I talked about years ago. I think, I guess it was like 2016, 2015, 2016. The band is called Helion Prime, and they are a heavy metal band. Pretty independent act. Like, you can tell their production value, it's not like they're cutting a new Judas Priest album or something. They're probably not getting into the best studios in the world. And I think they're more or less self-publishing their albums in a way. But I totally recommend both of their albums. They just came out with their second album in 2018. Just last week. And we're just now into September. Maybe it just came out in the beginning of September. It's Terror of the Cybernetic Space Monster. Now, both of their albums, their first album was self-titled called Helion Prime. And both albums, I think, are concept albums where there is an entire story being told. Not an unheard of thing in heavy metal circles, and not unheard of for a band for every album to be some kind of story. I don't know if Terror of the Cybernetic Space Monster is a sequel to Helion Prime, like if it's like the same story. Because like there's a great band called Iron Savior, Iron Savior, every single album is this entire storyline. And it's like one big storyline that they're telling with every album that they come out. They're not like unrelated, okay? So not unheard of for bands to do this. Helion Prime, like they've got the melody and the riff. I mean, they're incredible. Again, it doesn't have you can hear it doesn't have as clean a sound as if in their great studio or working with like a top-notch producer. But it's pretty fucking good. I mean, it really sounds great. Terror of the Cybernetic Space Monster. The one thing I don't like about it, and it's actually a pretty huge negative for me. The reason the first Helion Prime album caught my eye was because they had a female lead. They had a female lead singer, and she was great. Like she had a really great voice going for her. For whatever reason, I don't know what happened there. She's gone. She's not in the band anymore, and they brought in a guy. They have a male lead singer now, and he does his job. He's good. He's got a great pitch. I mean, he delivers, okay? But it just sucks. Like, I really love female-fronted bands, and it just sucks to not have that female lead, especially when she delivered, really on those songs and brought them, I think, to as full a fruition as they could do as a very indie band. So Terror of the Cybernetic Space Monster, it feels like there's a whole story going on there. I really like the album. There's a song on there, Atlas Obscura, that I think is probably the highlight of the album. It's like the third or fourth track on it. But I loved it right out of the gate. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to listen to this over and over again. And it's really cool because everything is very science fiction themed. Like off their first album, they have, the Drake Equations, one of the songs. There's a bunch of stuff like that. And I mean, you can just tell from the title, that it's, that it's a science fiction based thing, but their lyrics stick within that. And I think it's really, really classy, really slick metal. Even though, again, you can obviously tell it's not being done by a major record company, but that's okay. Like I think that's perfectly fine. So Helion Prime's new album, again, it's Terror of the Cybernetic Space Monster. Check out the track Atlas Obscura, but all of the songs I heard on there I enjoyed. And they go on some pretty epic, shall we say, some epic musical quests with some of these songs. And they got some good length on them, which is something that metal has seemed to drop a little bit here and there. We go through times where there's 11-minute metal songs, and we go through times where it's 2.5 minutes, and it's like, like the new Godsmack, which I like the new Godsmack album. I mean, actually, I love it, but what the fuck? What's with the short songs? So, but anyway, so Helion Prime, again, is the band. I recommend both of their albums, without reservation. But Terror of the Cybernetic Space Monster, it's good. I just really wish they still had their female front lead. I really, really wish they had their female front lead. That would have put this from good to great, because I really think their first album is actually really great metal. I really love it. And this could have taken it there as well. But it's not there, but it's still a worthy listen, and I recommend buying it because I think that they're good guys overall at Helion Prime, and they're really putting out, science fiction metal. That's something we could never get enough of. I know that's kind of a deeper or kind of a niche, But I think we need that. Let's have it. It was great when Judas Priest would do it. It's great when Starset does it. It's great. Go down the list of the bands when they do it, and or even Iron Savior. Let's keep it going. Let's get the Little Axe going on. Let's go with Helion Prime. I love it. So yeah, Helion Prime, Terror of the Cybernetic Space Monster just came out. Check it out. And if you want to, email them. Tell them you heard about it on Sovereigntech. That's fine. That happened with Power Glove recently, actually. And then, I got to meet, some of the folks at Power Glove. So, all right. Anyway, that's it. And we'll wrap this baby up. Of course, lots of stuff to come out throughout September. We'll see if we can get some of these surprises to finally come out. And there's going to be some shifts with Patreon in September as well that I'm going to be making. But I will tell you about those as they happen. So, all right, that's it for this Wednesday Patreon Q&A. I will see all of you on the other side.